So yeah, I just want to share with you, Dan. Nice meeting you all, and the founder for Haddee Education. So this is our mobile site is m.haddee.com. And we have two actually programs coming up. If you're students in high school who are really interested in research and writing, and we have exactly the identical program. It's writing for competition and submit for Harvard International Review. So we have two teachers, Ms. Pont and Ms. Marino. They were actually graduate students' friends from many years ago, and they both hold master in MFA in creative writing. So, hi, Mr. Lawrence, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good. Okay, give me 1 sec, almost finished. So we have Ms. Pont's first class, the 10 people already booked. That's for the US students. And then she created one for the, okay, it's not showing up. It's on the mobile. And should look at it on the phone. Okay, so, and she created a different program for Asia, which is 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you are interested, you can take a look at it. And it's very easy. You just go on our website and just type in Harvard, okay? So Ms. Pond only has a class available for students in Asia, which is 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay? So her colleague, Ms. Marino, are launching classes for the US students, okay? And this is, we take minimum 6 students to start. So she needs one more and it's almost there, so no problem. And that's a Tuesday and Thursday in the evening time. And that's Pacific Standard Time, which is at night, Eastern Standard Time, okay? So for most California students, and then she's launching another one. I don't know why it's not pulling through, but no problem. That's in a different time and it's coming up, okay? So that's all. I'm gonna give the floor to Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Lawrence. And I'm gonna make you, in case you need a share, I'm gonna make you co-host. Let me see. And co-host. Okay. So now, Mr. Lawrence, thanks for your time and the floor is all yours.
So I assume we have a number of parents here wondering about the digital SAT and what those changes entail. I can tell you that it's quite a different test, but at the same time, it tests the exact same concepts and skills as the old test. I have taken a number of the practice tests that the SAT is offering on their website. And if your students are interested in learning about the test, that is the best way to do it, is to go to the SAT College Board website, and they have an informational download that just talks about the differences between the previous test and the new one. And then they allow you to download the program that's necessary in order to take the digital test. It's called Blue Book. And what it does is, once you load it on your laptop or whatever device the student is going to be using to take the test, when they take the test, it will allow them to access the SAT questions, and it will lock them out of everything else. So they can't just, browse Google and look for answers while they're taking the test. They're going to be locked into that particular program. And they're working very hard to make sure that the security is tight. Now, I know that many people will be taking it at testing centers. And what the SAT has said is that you can download Blue Book onto your own laptop and bring it with you, and then use your own device for taking the test. If you don't have one to work with, or if you just don't feel comfortable transporting it, or like one of my recent laptops, it doesn't go anywhere without losing all its battery, you can show up without, and they're supposed to supply a laptop to you. To take the digital test, then you will log into Blue Book and they will download the test to you, and you'll start answering the questions, and the student will deal with it much as they did the old paper test. Although many students nowadays, I know here in Virginia, where I reside, we have the Virginia SOLs, the Standard of Learning tests, that I have two 14-year-old boys, and they both took those tests this year in the 8th grade, and it's all digital. So many students nowadays are much more comfortable with the digital format. I think that's why the SAT is going to it, is because they're trying to convince people that they are technologically advanced, they are updated, and they can give students the tests in the way that they expect tests to be, rather than the old paper and bubble sheet where you fill in all the answers. But it's very different in a lot of ways. Okay, this is what people have to be prepared for, is that, say, take some various sections that the old test had. The old reading section offered you 5 passages that were about 90 lines long and asked you 10 to 11 questions on each passage. The new reading test offers you 1 paragraph at a time and 1 question at a time. They used to have a separate writing and language test, which gave you 4 passages with 11 questions each, which were testing things like grammatical usage, logical transitions, the flow of the argument, and making the right choices. The new test then mixes them in with the reading. So it's no longer 2 sections. It's 1 section that is combined with the reading comprehension and the grammatical and rhetorical skills section. And in the old version, you didn't know what kind of question you were being asked. In the new version, they tell you what kind of question you're being asked. For each paragraph that comes up, they'll say, this question is testing standards of English usage, meaning grammar, and they'll have like 5 of them in a row. They'll say this test is questioning the main point of the paragraph, and they'll have 2 or 3 of those in a row. They all used to be jumbled together over the course of 10 questions on a single passage. Now they are in very sequential order, and they tell you what they're testing. I've actually found the new test much easier. I've actually heard from other people, though, and I've heard from online chat groups, that the students are finding it harder. I'm not sure exactly why. I think it's just that they're not used to it, because to be asked 1 question at a time about 1 paragraph at a time is much more focused. The biggest problem I see with their new format is that they divide it into what they call modules. Okay, you used to have a reading section and then a writing section. Now you have module 1 and module 2. And if you don't do well on module 1, you cannot score well on the test, because they call it an adaptive test. And what they are saying by that is that they will give you a different set of questions on the second module if you did great than they will if you did poorly. It adapts to what you did on the first half of the test. And so they've already pigeonholed the students into score ranges based on the first half of the test. Now, they're not going to be exactly 100-point score ranges, but I'll give you as an example. Let's say you did poorly on the first half of the test and they put you in the 500 to 600-point range. They're going to give you easier questions on the second half of the test, but you can't get out of that range. You can't boost yourself up into the 700s or drop down into the 400s because they've already pigeonholed you as someone that's in the 500 to 600 range. And on the second half of the test, the second module is just determining where in that range you fall. Are you low in that range in the 510 to 520? Are you high in that range in the 580 to 590? And the same is true if you're really good and you've tested yourself on the first half into the 700 to 800 slot. Now they're going to give you harder questions than those students got that were pigeonholed into a lower bracket. But they're not going to ever drop you back into the 600s. You've already earned that 700 to 800 slot. Now they're going to use the second module to see whether you're a 710, a 750, 790, 800. And so by calling it an adaptive test, it means that students have to really, really focus on the first module because that's what puts them in their score range and they can't get out of it. So they have to score well on the first half if they want to score well overall. The same is true on the math sections. They used to have a no calculator section and a calculator section, and that's gone now. They've combined it all together. You can use your calculator the entire time, which many students feel more comfortable with. I had many students who really didn't like the no calculator section because they like having that tool at their fingertips. But again, it's in 2 modules. And so you have to do well on that first module to get the harder questions on the second module in order to boost yourself into the upper scores. Because if you miss a few silly ones on the first module, you just stumble a little bit, you just, boom, you can't get out of the score range that they put you in from the first module. It really stresses the beginning of the test. Now, obviously, once they put you in your score range, you want to score into the higher end of that range and do well on the second module as well. But if you stumble in the first module, you're hurting and you can't get out of it. I'm not a big fan of that because I've seen students miss a couple easy questions at the beginning because they were so easy they weren't paying attention. Okay. And then they get to the harder ones at the end and they do great. Because that's more recent math. That's what they've been studying recently. That's what they are more in command of. This test doesn't allow you the leeway of missing a few of those easy ones because it will punish you and put you in a lower bracket right from the very beginning. So that's been my experience with the test, but I haven't found it harder. I've only tutored it once myself so far because only international students have been taking it. All my US-based students, they're still taking paper tests, and I'm still working with them on the traditional paper tests that the College Board has released. But the one student I had was from Australia. He was taking the digital test in May. He came to me with a 1480, which means he was already scoring well. And when he took the test in May, he got it up to a 1550, which was his score goal. And he's going to take it again because now he feels like he can do even better. Because now he knows that new digital test. He knows he can get himself into the 700 bracket on both sides of the test in the first module. And now he's just trying to bump up that 700 into the higher levels in the second module. But that's the mindset that the students have to have. That's what they have to understand, is that it is going to be presented to them that way. And they need to boost that first part as far as possible. Now, I see a couple chat questions. Okay, no, that's Okay, that's no questions there. I open myself to any questions anybody has about this experience.
Yeah, it's coming. Oh, that's a big. What's the
What
full
is the
score?
full score? Okay, it's the same. It's a 1600. It's 800 on the verbal side, 800 on the math side. Even though it's not split up on the verbal side into writing and language, the SAT College Board Administration is trying to ensure everybody that the 1600 on the old test is equivalent to a 1600 on the new test, and that a 1400 on the old test equivalent to a 1400 on the new test. Which grade should the students start taking the SAT test? If you're taking it in ninth grade, you're well ahead of the curve that I'm on, because it's the test is designed for juniors. Okay, and that's why they're releasing it in March of this year in the US, because that's when they expect juniors to be taking the test. There is no reason a junior can't take it earlier. Juniors are certainly, open to taking the test the end of August, all the way through the fall. But this is the transition year. So if rising juniors are taking the test in the fall, they're going to be taking the paper version. And if they take it next spring, they're going to be taking the digital version. Anybody after that, people that are in 9th and 10th grade now, they're not going to have one of each. They're only going to have the digital version offered to them. And they haven't even really taken their PSATs yet. It's not that I discourage people from testing that early. It's that the math is advanced enough that if you haven't taken enough math classes, you can't do the math in 9th grade. It's like, what math are you taking in 9th grade that prepares you for the math that's on the SAT? The calculator, they'll accept all sorts of different kinds of calculators, and the most popular that everybody uses is the TI-84. Various versions of the TI-84, they're all acceptable, but Casio versions that do the same kind of graphing calculation are the same. And the SAT College Board site will actually list for you the acceptable calculator types. Okay. I have no idea how to answer that question. I have never seen that 100 hours of preparation helps anyone. You're killing yourself. I mean, 3 to 4 months, 100 hours. When I work with students, I work with them for 12 to 16 hours. And that's my program. And then I have them do 12 to 16 hours of practice in between. So we might be talking a total of 30 hours. For the SAT, you need to have at least Algebra 2 and trigonometry under your belt. It does not test later concepts in high pre-calc or in calculus at all. There is no calculus on the test. But they do expect you to also remember your pre-algebra, your Algebra 1, your geometry. I find a lot of students, the reason that they don't score as high as they should is they've forgotten things from 2 and 3 years ago. When I'm tutoring students, a lot of my time is reminding them of things they know. But they're like, well, geez, I haven't thought about that in 3 years because I'm taking calculus now. I haven't thought about how to solve a basic system of equations that's an Algebra 1 concept and tool because it's all in their past. And so I can't answer what the minimum score if target is the top 15 colleges. No idea what the minimum score is. For something like that, you should talk to the college counselors like Ms. Pont or Ms. Anton. They'll tell you what the minimum scores are. My goal is just to raise people's scores to where what they're shooting for. And most people look up the schools they want to go to. You can Google any school you're interested in and just put in the school name and SAT scores. And it'll tell you on the school site, but it'll also bring up other sites like Prep Scholar, which will give you a range. It'll tell you they don't accept people below this. And if you're above this, you're in the top 25%. Here's the median. Shoot for being above the median. That's what you want to do. You know, if you're talking about going to a school like one of the Ivy League schools or Stanford or MIT, well, you better be shooting in the high 1500s. Okay. But that's what the students who come to me looking to go to those schools are usually already close to that. They're just below 1500 maybe. And they're like, can I get that up to a 1550? The higher you get on your own, the harder it is to boost because you're only missing the very hardest questions. When a student comes to me with a low score and they come to me with a 1100, they want to get it up to a 13 or 1400. That's much easier because they're missing the easy questions. And it's easy to teach them how to answer those. If they're only missing the very hardest questions, it really takes focus and concentration to raise that. So if you have a reading and writing of 640, meaning that if you met, that's halfway to a 1280 if you matched it with your math, bringing it up to 750 on both sides, so you're breaking 1500, definitely doable. 640 to 750 is only 110 point increase. And 640 shows that you are missing a lot of questions. You're not in the 700s. You're not in the 750 range already. If you're at 750 already, you're only missing 5, 8 questions total out of the total 96 they ask you on the verbal section. If you're at a 640, you're missing over 20 of them. And it's a matter of, okay, now we find which ones you're missing. We see what categories they're in, what types of questions are giving you problems. Because this is true on the old version that's going away and the new version that's coming up. They ask the same types of questions over and over, test after test, year after year. That's what makes them standardized. And if you teach the students what the question types are that they can expect to see, and to recognize what the question type is, and also what the SAT test writers hope them to answer, they learn the test. Many of them already know all the math, but they don't understand the way the test is going to ask it. They don't understand the way these guys try and say, okay, we know you all know all the math. So we're going to try and place it in front of you in a way that you've never seen before and see if you can logic your way through to an answer that combines some of your geometry skills with some of your algebra 2 skills in a way that no class ever did. They stretch students. They push them for logic. They ask them questions that no test they've ever taken has ever asked before. And so the trick is to learn the test. Do the colleges see all the test attempts the student tried? No. And is the digital time limit the same? No. The paper test was 3 hours, approximately, when you add up all the 4 sections. The new test is 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's a shorter test. And when you are registering for a test, or when you're sitting there and when the student is sitting there filling out whatever form the proctors give them in the paper test. I'm not sure if they're going to do the same digitally because I haven't seen how they introduce the test digitally. But usually they ask, do you want these scores submitted to a college? And the advice that myself and and the Haddee counselors like Miss Pont and Miss Anton give is that no, you say no. You don't submit those scores until you see them. Okay? Because you don't know if you want to send them to your target school. It might not be good enough. And they don't have to know that you even took a test until you hit the score that you want to submit, or you hit two scores that you want to combine to give what they call a super score. You might score higher on the verbal of one and higher on the math of another. You submit both of them, and most schools will combine the highest from each and give you what they call a super score. And so the colleges don't see all the test attempts unless they are a very particular college. There are some schools, like, for example, Georgetown University. They insist that you submit every score. And they will choose which ones to look at. Now, as Ms. Pont has said to me, how can they know? Okay, if you don't submit the first score you took when you took it in August at the end of your 10th grade year and you hadn't even done 11th grade and you didn't do well, if you don't submit that, but you submit the next three, how do they know you didn't submit August? They don't. The SAT can't tell them that. The College Board cannot report to them that, oh, they didn't ask for one of these scores. What Ms. Pond has told me is that they'll only get suspicious if there's a big gap. like it's weird that all of a sudden there's only one score and it's from March of your senior year or March of your junior year, and that's the only one they see, and they're like, usually students take these tests more than once. We want to see more than one attempt.
Yeah, some parent just private message me. I just copy paste.
I see that.
Yeah.
If you haven't taken it before, do you see a need to take the old version before the digital version? Do I see a need for it? I see a smartness to it. Because you don't know which one the student's going to do better on. And they do test the same concepts. So if you prep for the paper test and take it, that will indeed prep you for the digital tests because they're testing the same concepts. But if you do great on the paper test, you might never have to take the digital one. So do I see a need for it? Not necessarily, but do I think it's smart to do it? Yeah, because this is the last year you can do it. This is the last year a student can try the paper test and then try the digital test and see which one's better. After this year, you don't have that option. It's all digital. So why not? Why not take both?
So yeah, so Mr. Lawrence, a lot of test sites booked already for August and October in the US, especially in Southern California.
I've seen and heard that. And I'm not sure why, but I think it's because people are panicking. I think it's because people are saying, oh my God, I want to get a seat at the paper test before they disappear. Well, fine. Then if you can't take it in August and you can't take it on October 7th, get registered for November, get registered for December. Try and get a seat that's not too far a drive and allow you to take at least one paper version of the test. And then once they open registration for the March digital, get in early. See, that's the thing that people don't do. That yes, the seats fill up. Well, guess what you do? Get in early. As soon as you're allowed to register, register. Find a seat at the closest place that you can. I've had students, I live in Virginia. And I've had students who had to drive all the way to Ohio to take the test, which is an 8-hour drive,
Oh my gosh.
but they couldn't get in anywhere else. Now, you hate seeing that happen. Yeah, these students actually drove up. They had friends in that area. That's why they chose it. They drove up the day before, stayed overnight, and went and took the test the next morning. But that's really inconvenient. And you certainly wouldn't want to be getting up at 11 a.m., at 11 p.m. and driving till 7 a.m. to get there in 8 hours to take an 8 o'clock test. So the fact that they could stay overnight with friends was the only way they could do it. If you find that tests are booked up nearby, look for the next test date and try and be one of the early ones instead of one of the late ones. There isn't a whole lot of leeway as far as seats that they can offer, and I'm particularly worried about the digital seating. I don't know for sure, but it seems to me that they have said on their website that they will supply laptops to students who come without them. But if too many students come without them, are they going to have enough laptops? How many laptops can they have available at every test site? And so I think, I can't be sure of this because nothing has been advertised, but I've had a student have his June test canceled. All of a sudden, like 3 days before the test, they said, "You're canceled." No explanation. And I'm afraid it's that they didn't have enough laptops. And they were like, if he was somebody who said, if he said on his form that he was going to need one of their laptops, they were like, "Don't have it. Sorry, you're canceled." So definitely what people want to do is get that Blue Book program application downloaded to their favorite device. Do that ahead of time because that's the only way you can take the digital practice test anyway. What's out on the College Board site is 4 tests that are non-adaptive because it's in 2 modules, but they give you a first module and the second module and they don't change it. You get the same no matter how you did on the first half, you get the same second half. Those are good practice just to have students see what kind of questions they're going to be asking, what the format is, but then you can go and download the Blue Book app and actually take an adaptive test that they have developed for you to practice with. Me, I don't know. I did them and I scored so high on the first half that all I got was the highest section of the second half. I'm not allowed to do it twice. So I can't go out there and pretend that I scored lower on the first half to see what questions they would give me on the second half. But the idea is that those would be easier because you didn't score as high on the first half and it adapted to your skill level. Students need to go out there and try those tests, and it will give you your score. It will not only give you your score, it will give you a link to go in and see every question that you missed, answer explanations for what the right answer was, what you did wrong. And Khan Academy, from what I understand, is building the same thing in because they are in partnership with the SAT. So as the digital test, I have not gone and checked out what's out on Khan Academy because I usually don't love that site a lot. And when I log in, once I do register, then they send me like a million emails and I get tired of it. But it's there. It's part of the SAT program that they will have even just sample questions. You don't even have to take a practice test. You can go out to Khan Academy and they'll say, these are sample questions of the type that they're going to ask. And they'll show the students the 1 paragraph, 1 question format that's going to be on the new test, as opposed to the 90-line passage with 10 questions that's on the old test. I find 1-to-1 easier. I had a student ask me today, "Well, isn't that a lot more work for them?" And I'm like, well, let me think about that. Yeah, they got to come up with 33 paragraphs for the first module and 33 paragraphs for the second module instead of 9 total passages for the 2 sections of the test before. But there's like 33 questions on the first module and 33 on the second. That's 66 total questions. And they used to ask 96, 52 reading and 44 writing. They got to write 30 less questions. So yeah, they got to find more sources, but they don't have to ask as many questions. And somehow they say that they're going to be able to put you on the same scoring scale from 200 to 800 on both sides of the test for a 1600 total. And yes, it makes logical sense to check the no box for pre-test release. You don't want to release it until you're sure that you want the schools to see it. I hope what I've been saying makes sense. I think you'll find that your students like the new version because today's students are so digitally more advanced than me and my colleagues and coworkers were at the same age, you know, and probably more advanced than we are now. I've got 2 sons. I've got a son who can program for the Oculus, which is the virtual reality game. And he goes every summer, he takes another programming course down in Charlottesville, Virginia, where the University of Virginia is. And there's no doubt that he knows more about the digital world than I do, even though I worked in the computer science field for 20 years in business before I got back into teaching. That's what I did was computer science, and he's 14 years old and he knows more than me. So these students nowadays are just so much more advanced in the digital world than we ever were, that they're going to be comfortable with the digital test. And they're going to be like, oh yeah, I just pick my answers. Great. I don't have to be filling in stupid bubbles with a number 2 pencil. In the long run, I think the SAT did it because they're trying to take business back and away from the ACT, which is sticking with the paper tests.
Yeah. So that the parents does not understand.
I see the question. It's when I say not to post the test, I mean don't post it to the colleges. It's not that you don't want to see the results. You can, if 3 times a year they allow you to buy what they call the QAS, which is the question and answer service. They give the test 7 times a year. 3 of them you can buy. When you buy it, it shows you not just your total score, but every question, the difficulty level, which ones you missed, which ones you got right. The ones you missed, you can go back into, it will open them up, it'll show you the question, it'll show you what the right answer was. No, there is a need sometimes to buy the test results. If your student wants to know, if they're scoring high and they want to know, okay, which ones are getting me, the only way to know that is to buy the QAS. If you score a 1600, you don't need it. No. Okay. If you're scoring a 1600, you're done. And then you can release it to any score you want. You can post the test to everybody because 1600s will open a lot of doors. But if you're getting a 1480 and you want a 1550, you might say, what am I doing wrong? Which ones am I missing? Then you can buy the test. You can buy the QAS, and it will show you exactly which ones you're missing. If you got above a 1550, is there any need to retest? Personally, I would say no, because if you're scoring above 1550, that opens the door to almost every college. But it depends on where you're trying to go and what else you can put on your application. This is the kind of question that should go to Miss Pont or Miss Anton, because they're going to know which school you're looking at. If you're looking at MIT, it's different than if you're looking at, even University of Virginia, which is one of the top state schools in the country. But if you scored a 1550, they're taking you. Okay, because they're like anybody above 1450, they're interested in. MIT, if you scored a 1550, they're going to go, what else have you got? What else are you bringing here? Do you have extracurricular activities? Are you into robotics? I mean, what else are you bringing to our campus? Because we've got 1,000 applicants that have 1550s.
Okay, so now I have a question, Mr. Lawrence. We have discussed not to hold group classes for SAT prep, but pretty much every single company out there, they like lock the students for 6 weeks and a lot of money, a lot of time spent, and for group classes. So at Haddee, right now, we're only offering one-on-one, okay? So with this digital testing, it's more customized. Will those group classes continue? Because everybody, the results going to be different based on the first section.
I honestly don't know what the other companies are going to do about it. Because,
interesting.
You know, I mean, I used to work at a company that was called Loudon Test Prep in Loudon County, Virginia. And they offered group classes, but only like 3 to 5 students in each one. And they divided the classes by what they called high flyers, which were the people scoring really high. And then they didn't give names to the other group, but they were lower scoring groups. And they bunched them together so that you didn't have the lowest scorers in the same room as the highest scorers. That's the problem with group classes. If there's too big a range, you can't teach to the bottom of the class without boring the top. And you can't teach to the top of the class without losing the bottom. Without confusing them, okay? So they narrowed the range. This test is going to automatically narrow the range. So if companies want to continue doing group classes, I think they're going to have to know what range you're in. Okay, are we teaching the kids that want to get higher in the 700s? Are we teaching the kids that want to get higher in the 600s? Are we teaching the kids that want to get higher in the 500s so that they can break 1200 and at least go to a decent school? Okay, you know, it's a matter of, I think they're going to have to separate the students by ability level, just like the test is separating them by ability level before it gives them the second half of the test. Myself, the reason I do all one-on-one is because I think that's the only way students really get the attention they need. I've taught group classes, and even when they gave me a group of high flyers, there were some kids in the class who were getting it while other kids in the class weren't. It's very difficult to teach to a range of students and reach all of them. And so that's why I only do one-on-one. I'm like, you come to me, I assess where you are, I find out what your strengths and weaknesses are. That's what we focus on. That's what we improve. And you can't do that if you got 10 kids in the room. You might be able to do that when you're talking about, you know, all right, we're going to talk about literature. And you've all read the book and I'm doing a class on it. Well, that's just like your high school class. That we can do in a classroom environment. But to teach somebody how to tackle this test to improve their score, it's very much tailored to what each student needs. That, and at least that's my opinion.
Yes, I agree. And a lot of parents agree as well. But sometimes they feel the kids need to be locked in the room, physical classroom, to learn SAT for the entire summer, which I think is wasting time. So,
you know, and some people get good results from that. I can't knock it. I mean, people take classroom classes and boost their scores. But to my mind, that's a matter of how much effort the student puts into it, not how much they get out of the instruction. Because the instruction is going to be the same for everybody in the room. And if one kid does great and another kid doesn't, what's the difference? The amount of effort the kid that did great put into it. I always tell my students that when I meet with them first time, you get out of it what you put into it. You work hard, you'll learn. You try and slide by, you won't.
Mhm.
You know, if you don't commit to improving your scores, you won't improve your scores.
That's correct. Yeah. So with Mr. Lawrence, and we have other SAT teachers, some for the math, younger college students, college coaches, PhD students, and we also have very senior teachers who focus on English and verbal section of it, like Miss Rodriguez and other teachers. Everyone right now coming to Haddee. Mr. Lawrence has designed this questionnaire as Miss Lawrence form, and we just made a survey format. And we all have students to fill out before even considering meeting the students for our 30-minute paid consultation. But Miss Lawrence is very busy, and he only, I think you only settle the schedule with one student at a time, right?
Yeah, I need
Yes.
to fit them into my current calendar before I can even start talking to the next one.
Yeah. So we based on the priority of the form submission, but out of that, Mr. Lawrence gives the senior students priority, the students who are going to apply. And if the students who are our counseling students, of course, we give them priority. So just let you know the approach of how we prioritize our teachers' time. So anyway, yeah, just take a couple of minutes away regarding the admin portion of it. So let's see, any other questions you guys have?
You integrate the timing element for those who might need skill to blitz through in a timely fashion. So I see two questions here, and the charge comes through Dan, and then Dan pays me. So how you charge? That's a question for her, not me. How many hours per week? I like to meet with students once per week for 90 minutes. And then I give them 60 to 90 minutes worth of homework before the next session. Occasionally, I give them a full test to take before the next session, which would be 3 hours worth of homework. But I don't do that every week. That's when I feel that they're ready to sit down and take a fully timed test. How do I integrate the timing into it was the other question. Well, at first I don't. At first I'm like, take all the time you need. I want to see what you can answer when no clock is hanging over your head, when nobody's telling you you're out of time. Which of these questions, if you had more time, would you have the skill and knowledge to answer? Once I find out that, then I know what they need to work on. And as we improve the ones that they were getting wrong and applaud them for the ones that they were getting right, they naturally find that they're doing the whole test faster, because they're trusting the answers that they know for sure, and they're not dawdling as long as on the ones that were giving them problems. They're getting those right too. And all of a sudden the timing problems go away because they can do the test faster because they're better at it. And it's so I don't focus on the timing at first. Anybody who focuses on the timing at first is beating the kid up and saying, you have to do it fast. You have to do it fast. It's like, no, you just have to do it. You have to know how to answer these questions. Then you'll be able to do it in the time limit. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, very sensible. So yeah, regarding everything's on our website, so you can go on the front page, type in SAT, do a search. This is a mobile site. We also have, and this is Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence does not take online booking, okay? So we agreed, me and Mr. Lawrence agreed that any student coming in, I basically spend some time talking to the parent and sometimes to the student. And then the student fills out the form that designed by Mr. Lawrence. I show that form to you guys. And then we I get in the queue, and sometimes Miss Lawrence gets, I'm bugging him because I give him multiple students. Then you will be upset if I give him multiple students. I need to kind of calm myself down. I only share one student at a time. And with that students, the form must be filled. There must be very good reason that SAT prep needs to happen. And then Ms. Lawrence and I talk, and then we agree to do a paid consultation, 30 minutes, but a lot of time spent before that consultation happens. Some parents know, a lot of time back and forth. I have to calm the parents and student down. I'm almost there, just wait, a few days. And then Ms. Lawrence does the consultation. We don't usually particularly collect separately. 100%, I can tell you 100% when our student meets with Mr. Lawrence, and they will want to take the full program, which is 8 sessions, an hour and a half. And then we collect the whole thing together, okay? So, and you don't pay online, even though we put it online, and most our classes are paid through online. This is all privately arranged. So you need to either WeChat us or text us or email us. We make private arrangement because Mr. Lawrence is that special. Thank you,
Sorry.
Mr. Lawrence.
Sorry, I'm outside the loop on the way most of it is done, but just try and give everybody as much time as I can. Because once I commit to a student, that's it for me. I'm committed to that student, and I'm going to do everything I can to help that student improve. And that's why I'm very selective. And yet, as you said, you have a number of other SAT tutors. I'm sure many of them are extremely qualified. And so, your parents have a lot of different choices. I'm hoping that some of them are out there already on the College Board site taking those digital tests because they're going to need to tutor them very soon. The PSAT this fall for 11th graders will be digital in October. So that's the first taste that juniors will get of the digital format. And unless they're international, in which case they might have done it already. But for the US students, PSAT in October, SAT in March, all digital. And that's what tutors have to be switching their mode over to, because that's what it's going to be completely once 2024 rolls around.
Yeah.
I hope I've answered as many questions as people have. I don't see the chat up anymore. I don't know if any more new questions have come in.
Yeah. So thank you.
And I can't answer that last question because I don't know how colleges view it, because they're just starting to see it. They're going to have to decide for themselves whether the 1550 on the new test is commensurate with the 1550 on the old test. The College Board can tell them all along that they're going to be the same, but until they start actually getting some results and then seeing how those students do as freshmen, they're not going to have hard data to make that judgment with. For the first year, they're going to have to take the College Board at their word. And then we can all hope that the College Board's word is true. and that the old scores,
Okay, Mr. Lawrence.
I had something caught in my throat.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. So
And that the old scores are the same as the new ones. But we won't know that for at least a year.
That's right.
And the colleges won't know that for at least a year.
That's good. Yeah. At the end, I'm just attaching a link for college counselor intake form. So if students want to, have a professional college counselors, we work with very experienced college counselors. Mr. Lawrence mentioned Ms. Pan. you know, Miss Anton, we have Dr. Montes, quite a few of them. We will not take any students unless the student fill out the form themselves, because we wanted the student to be in charge and interested in seeking help. So if your students are interested in seeking help, please have your students fill out the form and we'll follow up and go from there, okay? We do give our experienced SAT teacher like Mr. Lawrence, the priority will go to the seniors and our college counseling students first, okay? Just want to be very clear. Okay. Ms. Lawrence, anything else to say?
Yeah, I thought I'd throw out there why I give first shot to rising seniors, because if they are applying in September and they come to me in May or June and say, I still don't have the score I want, they don't have many chances left.
Right.
They need the help immediately. Whereas if somebody comes to me and they're in 9th grade and says, I want help, I'm like, yeah, well, I'd love to give it to you if I have time, but you're not desperate for it. You don't, you know, you have time to do prep on your own, to do prep with another person, to take a boot camp somewhere, you know, that many people take. There are many ways to attack the SAT or the ACT if that's what students choose to take. But if you're going to be a senior and need to fill out your application, it's your last shot. And those are the people I want to make sure I help before I help people that have time. If they're a 9th grader, a 10th grader, they can try the test. And if they need to boost their score after that, I can talk to them and I can help them. But it's the people that need the scores immediately that I feel the most need to reach out to and help. And it's the people that have been working with you through your counselors. The counselors come to me and say, this is a great kid, needs 50 points, please help him. That's why I give preference to the students that are counseled through Haddee too, because I know the counselors and they come to me personally and tell me why I should give them personal attention. I just try and prioritize the ones who need it most and deserve it most.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Yeah, students and parents, you guys can go on Google Haddee Education. You'll see a lot of good reviews. Quite a few of them, you go through them, are for Mr. Lawrence. We have students like from 1500 to 1580, 1520 to 1580. It's very impressive. You know, my son, many years ago, got 1520, and I didn't know Mr. Lawrence that time. Of course, we know Miss Pont that time. And I even told the student, I told me, my kids say, oh, 1520 is good, because I thought it's very difficult to improve from 1520. And but you know, for the past few years, Mr. Lawrence has been helping our students. For me, it's a miracle from 1520 to 1580. And you did it, and with our students. So thank you very much, Mr. Lawrence. And and last thing I want to emphasize, we're not here just to picking the students from 1520 to 1580. Okay, so do not misunderstand us. We help all students, okay? And Mr. Lawrence, I think when I first met you, we talked about the profile or your achievement on the average, you know, and other students like a teacher like Miss Rodriguez. On average, we help students improve scores on SAT 150-ish on average, right?
That's a nice average.
Yes, we help students starting from 1200, 1300, all the way up. So we help all kinds of students. So that's what I want to emphasize here.
Two last questions I see in the chat that the first one I wanted to address. Starting in October, the PSAT will be digital, but not the SAT test. The SAT won't be digital until March of next year. So the PSAT October, SAT March 2024. And the question as to where to see the review on your website, I think Dan showed the link for that. Right?
It's easy. It's you just go on Google. I don't know whether that link will help. Google and put Haddee Education, and you will drag and you will see the review. Yeah. So it's quite easy. Any other question? Yeah, go ahead. Mr.
The last question about, do colleges prefer the SAT or ACT? Not anymore.
Mhm.
They used to. The SAT was the granddaddy. But the ACT took away so much of their business by having a better test in the middle of the 2010-20 decade, that the SAT revised themselves completely in 2016 to try and get some business back.
Mhm.
That's why they changed in 2016, because the ACT was taking their business and all the colleges were accepting them. And since then, it doesn't matter which test you take.
Mhm.
The ACT is better for students who like STEM, who are better in math and science because it has a science section. And the SAT is just generally accepted everywhere, but it does not have a science section. It's just math and verbal. So if your student excels in science and thinks they can boost their overall score by doing well on a science test, they should take a look at the ACT.
Mhm. I see. One last question, sorry. For PSAT, any difference on e-test or the same? For digital, for PSAT?
Well, it's going to be in the digital format where it's adaptive.
Mhm.
There is only one digital test out there for the PSAT as opposed to the 4 for the SAT.
Mhm.
And I haven't even taken it yet myself because it wasn't out there when I was tutoring my student back in May. And now here it is June and it's out there. So they're updating their website as they go. They're
Mhm.
flying by the seat of their pants as far as I can tell. They're
Mhm.
trying to give people more and more material to practice with because they realize there's not enough out there. But at first they just had a little link that said, if you're studying for the PSAT, you should try our SAT practice test. And that's not right. So finally they got one out there. But
Mhm.
it's still going to be the 2 modules and the adaptive test, just like the SAT will be. And so it's a good thing for juniors to practice with. They'll see that format with the PSAT and be ready for it when they take the SAT.
Okay, so we are 6 minutes over 9 p.m. your time. I think we're gonna
I
yeah,
can
go
live
ahead.
with that.
Yeah, you can live with that. I know it's late. I know sometimes you teach until 11 p.m. I know. Yeah. So, but I think it doesn't seem like we have any more questions. Ms. Lawrence, you covered all. It's very informative. I'm learning myself as well.
So
Regarding,
I wish everyone and their children much luck on these tests and much luck in their college application processes. It's an exciting time in your lives and your children's lives, and may they all go where they want to go. That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence, for helping our students. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And yeah, everybody, thank you all for your time and
Good
have a
night.
great night. A great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.